Hi, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of the mighty Kamina from Gurren Lagann. And you are watching the Giant Fighting Robot channel. Like and subscribe, because that's the way Team Gurren rolls. Now let's see you grit those teeth. Don't believe in yourself. Believe in me. Believe in the Kamina who believes in you.
Warning: this video contains heavy spoilers for Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann. The first part of the video contains no spoilers while going over the general history of the series, who made it, and some trivia. But after that, it's Spoiler City. If you have yet to see this show and don't want to be told of its events, then I'd suggest turning the video off right now as the first part ends, and then dedicating the next 10 or so hours of your life watching it, and then returning to this video afterwards. If you've already seen Gurren Lagann, or just don't care about spoilers, then thank you for staying.
Second warning, this video contains a lot of gushing and opinions biased towards Gurren Lagann, and despite trying to present this in a fair and objective manner listing the positives and negatives, don't expect a level-headed and unbiased review of the show. This is just me loving it so much.
Let me sound as objective and level-headed as possible here when I say that holy Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann is my favourite thing ever, oh my f***ing god. I love it so much I want to f***ing f*** it. I have it tattooed on my leg. I have the lyrics to Liberami from Hell stuck to my f***ing wall. My Dragoon glamour in Final Fantasy XIV is based on Simon. I can't hear Yuri Lowenthal without involuntarily expecting a speech about drills. I love Gurren Lagann so much So, yeah, Gurren Lagann, it's pretty good in my opinion. I don't think I could really call this a review, since it's probably just going to be me gushing over Gurren Lagann, with some hopefully critical thoughts here and there, so it's not too biased. That's not a guarantee though. I'm going to split this video into sections, covering an introduction to the series with a brief overview of what it's about, a bit of history of the studio and the show's background, then my own introduction to the show, listing my favourite moments, and then probably spontaneously combusting from excitement with a wrap-up and thoughts at the end. Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann was first unleashed onto the world in 2007 by the anime studio Gainax. Former Gainax employees would later go on to form their own studio, Trigger. It's plain to see that the spirit of Gurren Lagann still lives on in their newer work. If you're a Trigger fan but have yet to watch Gurren Lagann, then I highly recommend checking it out, especially if the wonderful animation and hot-blooded over-the-top action is a major factor of enjoyment for you in those shows. Gainax was responsible for animations such as Gunbuster, Diebuster, Corpse Princess, and the OVA of Appleseed. Oh yeah, they're also responsible for the little project you've never heard of called
Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yes, the team responsible for the story of kids having to grow up while piloting robots with existential themes, universal level threats, and questionable sexual suggestion is also responsible for the story of that same stuff again, but done in a cool, manly, motivational kind of way. So, what's it all about, you may ask? Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, which roughly translates to Heavenly Piercing Crimson Face, is the story of Simon, a young boy born in an underground village who spends his days digging tunnels and hanging out with his bro Kamina. They're not literally related, but the bond between those two is so tightly wound that such insignificant things like blood relation really doesn't matter. One day, while digging, he discovers a little glowing core drill, shortly followed by a small robot with a face that they christen Lagann. Then, a monstrously faced mecha falls through the roof out of nowhere, being chased by this red-headed sniper named Yoko. She's 14. So, Japan, am I right? Anyway, Simon uses Lagann to defeat the monster robot, which fell through the ceiling, and all three of them fly straight upwards to the surface. Not long after that, they fight more robots, and gain another mecha, which gets christened Gurren. It turns out that Lagann actually possesses the ability to combine with other mechas and control them, which of course leads to Gurren and Lagann combining, hence the name of the show. While on the surface, the team meets many new faces and squares off against the dreaded Spiral King, who proves to be an immensely powerful foe. This makes up the first half of the show, and after that is a time skip, where humanity now lives on the surface, and Simon has to try and deal with the struggles of being a leader.
Stuff happens and then they go into space. All the while, turns out Mia is actually an anti-spiral messenger, and she's been planted there in some sort of strange womb thing in one of Lordgenome's concubines, and she becomes the harbinger of doom for all humanity. So they go into space, and then some stuff happens with the galaxy, and then they get bigger and bigger, one robot goes to another robot, and yeah, eventually they all combine
and become bigger than a galaxy! Despite being released over 15 years ago, and probably being overshadowed by newer, more mainstream shows, Gurren Lagann has enjoyed an enduring legacy as an anime that is considered one of the all-time greats. Okay, I'm trying to sound as objective here as possible, but it's really difficult sometimes just because of how much I love this show, something which will probably become more apparent as this video goes on. Yes, Gurren Lagann is highly regarded, and has even drilled its way into pop culture, with many other references in other works. Hell, even South Park referenced it in the Fractured Butthole game.
We advance a little further with each turn. That's how a drill works.
I haven't played the game myself, but if I had seen it and saw it happen for the first time, I think I would have absolutely flipped my shit. Now, for a little bit of my own history with the series. I've been a fan of robots ever since I was a little kid, when I tuned into Fox Kids and saw Power Rangers in space, and fell in love with the Megazords. And the other bits, but you know, mainly the Megazords. I also make Power Rangers videos, by the way, so go check those out if you want. After Power Rangers, I also became absorbed into Transformers, which I collect. And shortly after that, I discovered Metal Gear Solid, which is coincidentally my favourite game franchise. So yeah, I love big robots and mechs, hence the channel name. About a decade ago, when I was in college, as an impressionable young geek, me and my friend Dave were discussing anime, and he told me about some cool show he'd seen called Gurren Lagann. I'd genuinely never heard of it before, and thought it sounded cool, so I checked out a few episodes. I liked what I saw, but I have a bit of a habit of starting things and not sticking with them, so I did not follow through with the show. I can't remember what episode I stopped at, but what I do know is that it was definitely before episode 8. If you've seen the show, then you know exactly what happens on episode 8. A few days later, me and Dave were talking about the anime again, and Gurren Lagann came up once more. Dave must have assumed I'd finished or at least seen more of the show by then, so he started mentioning stuff I'd not seen yet, including the events of episode 8. The episode where Kamina, yes, that Kamina, the guy with the pointy orange sunglasses, dies. To say that I was upset is an understatement, and it's a grudge I've carried with me for over 10 years. I still love you, Dave, but I'll never forget that.
Sean, my muse, my flame, my moon and stars, my friend and gentle giant fighting robot. It is from the depths of a heavy heart that I issue a sincere apology for spoiling the episode of Tengen Topper Gurren Lagann. I'll never be able to repair the damage I've done to you by disclosing those events to you before you could experience them for yourself. No, I should have spoiled you way earlier. Imagine what wonders you could have accomplished by now had you been allowed to bathe in Gurren Lagann's red-hot waters of grace, heart, and imagination, if only but a little sooner. By waiting months for you to watch one more episode, I denied you a wellspring of inspiration during the most formative years of your life. How many ways to cure cancer could you have found? Would geopolitical conflicts be a thing of the past? Would we be piloting dope, aesthetically pleasing robots right now? We'll never know. I committed a mortal sin by stunting your evolution. I killed your progress of kindness, and now I must correct my mistake by gifting you with character-building hardships beyond your comprehension. I'm coming for you.
When I did eventually go back and finish it, I was genuinely blown away. From a visual standpoint alone, Gurren Lagann was a treat with amazing designs in both living and mechanical members of the cast, awesome animation when required, and sometimes not so awesome. I seriously want to praise whoever had the genius idea to make the robots' faces emote in sync with the pilot, because it really adds so much to a scene despite relatively being a small thing. Even the flipping eye-catch cards looked so striking that I took it as heavy inspiration for some of my own art. And the story? Well, my friends, therein lies the core of why I adore Gurren Lagann. It's not the most complex plot in the world, and you're not going to need to watch any bonus movies to get more context or the real ending. But the tale Gurren Lagann weaves through its 27 episodes is so simultaneously beautiful and simplistic and motivational that those elements twist together into a double helix and get slingshot straight into your brain. Oh yeah, how do those 3 elements fit into a double helix? Well, screw you maths, we just broke reality. This is a show that consistently shatters the limits of what you believe reality to possess, and I'm all about that. Does that mean that there are moments that leave you scratching your head and saying what the fuck? Absolutely, especially in the latter half, when things get so obscenely crazy that you'll wonder if this is even the same show. That's the thing though, even if it doesn't make any logical sense, you just learn to roll with it because you're along for the ride, because it's just so brilliant. Hell, some of it doesn't even make sense to me, and I'm the one sat here telling you about it, but I don't care that it doesn't make sense, because I still get the gist of it. Considering this is a spoilerific video which is intended for people who already know the story of Gurren Lagann, or who are just happy to be spoiled regardless, I don't think I really need to do a thorough rundown of the story from beginning to end. If you do need a refresher, then I'd suggest pausing right now, reading the wiki article, and then coming back, because this next part is just going to be me listing off my favourite moments from the series, and why I truly believe this to be peak fiction, as my friend Roberts likes to say. As a casual watcher, you'd be forgiven for thinking Kamina is the main protagonist. Hell, even I thought so too when I first watched it. In retrospect, it's fairly obvious that Simon is the protagonist, but I don't think I'd be entirely wrong in saying that Kamina is the poster boy of the show. I mean, it's his glasses that wind up in those memes, and it's his quotes about believing which get repeated. Kamina is the awe-inspiring, motivational leader of Team Daiguren, whose hot-blooded speeches and infectious fiery passion really get both the rest of the team and the audience pumped up. He's always been there for Simon, backing him up when he needs it and sheltering him like a big bro should. But, in a surprisingly candid moment, Kamina reveals to Yoko that Simon is actually the one who motivates him to keep going, because despite his bravado, Kamina is actually kind of insecure and admits Simon is the real hero, the one he believes in. This isn't to say that Kamina is false though, because everything he does not do it for personal glory, but for the advancement and the benefit of mankind, like the beautiful man he is. R.I.P. to the absolute legend. Simon's "I'm me" speech. It is just pure contained awesomeness in a bottle, that then proceeds to smash the bottle into other bottles containing awesomeness, which then congeal into a giant awesome biner. Simon fell into a heavy slump following Kamina's death, and spends a few episodes moping around, acting rashly, trying to be like his big brother, worshipping his memory to an almost fanatical degree. That fateful day he finds the discarded Princess Nia though. That all changes, and Simon's heroic resurgence, where he shows up to save the day and kick Guam's armadillo ass, is a sight to behold. Accompanied by Happily Ever After playing in the background, Simon stands up proudly with his arms crossed, proclaiming that even though Kamina is dead, he'll always be in his heart, and then starts giving the same sort of motivational speech that Kamina would, accompanied by that same skyward finger point. And then, the best part happens. Simon has always been seen to have lived in Kamina's shadow. Simon relied on Kamina to be the hero to make the speeches and lead them. Simon tried to be Kamina when his bro died and nearly followed that goal down a path of self-destruction. Now, Simon is his own person. He's not Kamina, he's not his bro, he is himself. And he's going to make sure everyone knows it. To top it off, Simon utilises the finisher that was created by his brother in him in excellent style. What a way to elevate a character. This wasn't something I'd written in my original draft, but in the time between recording my script and editing the video, I realised that I'd barely touched on Lordgenome. No, not Lord Genome, but Lordgenome. One word. He's the antagonist of the first half of the series, an enigmatic leader who is mentioned a few times before he's properly introduced, as the soft-spoken but authoritative, somewhat distant man in charge, who sits atop his raised throne, surrounded by concubines and generals. It's Lordgenome who was responsible for driving humanity underground, and we know he's clearly a threat, based on what we've heard and the way he's presented. But it isn't actually until he's forced to take action that we get to witness just how powerful he really is. I'm going to rewind a bit to the start of his backstory here, which we can see in Parallel Works number 8. Thousands of years ago, Lordgenome was a child who discovered a Lagann-like robot just like Simon did, but his was black. Using that robot, which would go on to be Lagann, he would rise up as a spiral warrior, leading armies against his foes before being confronted with a harrowing revelation that drove him to turn on his allies and send humanity underground, so that it could not thrive to reach a billion. The once proud warrior was driven into a doldrum, becoming a tyrant, who led his forces to keep the humans in check to prevent the worst happening. While his actions could be seen as noble and arguably justified, Lordgenome became cold and distant as time went on, gaining daughters from his concubines and then discarding them as he saw fit, like playthings, which is where Nia comes from. Stuff happens, and then following his defeat, the series moves on to the second half, with the anti-spirals taking over the mantle of main antagonists. You'd think Lordgenome would be dead and buried, but this is Gurren Lagann, where anything can happen. Thanks to Rossiu's scientific advancements, Lordgenome is brought back as a biocomputer that contains his memories and personality, basically a head in a jar. He dispenses useful exposition and gives more insight into the world, a bit like Zordon. if Zordon used to be a powerful warrior before being reduced to a head in a jar. Oh wait, never mind. He accompanies Team Daigoran into space, and is the one who clues them in about Cathedral Terra, and all the other science stuff. And in the final battle, he's able to form a new body thanks to the Super Spiral Universe, granting the ability to turn thoughts into reality. The real Lordgenome is back, baby, so to speak, to once again stand against the anti-spirals as a proud and powerful fighter. He shows great humility too, telling Viral that he is no longer a king, but a warrior, and even makes amends with Nia. Not sure this suffices as an appropriate apology for discarding her like a McDonald's Coke cup, but they don't have much time left, so I guess he squeezed it in when he could. Lordgenome sits in the battle against the Grand Zaboma, but things take a turn for the worse when it unleashes the Infinity Big Bang Storm, a blast with power greater than the birth of the universe. If you find this to be a bit too much, then need I remind you that just a few episodes before, Gurren Lagann punched a Mugan so hard that it shattered space. That happened. The show isn't quite done with heroic sacrifices just yet, and Lordgenome decides that the time has come to truly make amends, and boards Lazengan, which was inside Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann's chest, and flies directly in the path of the attack, unleashing a barrage of drills which he calls Lazengan Overlord, and he absorbs the bang. Everyone else is just like, what the hell? What are you doing? But Lordgenome knows exactly what he's doing. They say that Lazengan is undergoing a quantum breakdown, and I don't really understand what that means, but it's definitely not good. However, it turns out that it was good, and it's exactly what Lordgenome was waiting for, and he harnesses, need I remind you, the power of the birth of the universe, to turn into a giant drill with Lordgenome's head at the tip, which just looks amazing. And then Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann absorbs it. I'll give you a few seconds to try and catch up with what I just said. Go on, take a minute. You done? Okay, let's go. By absorbing the giant universe genome head drill, Team Daigoran gets powered up to maximum, and then that proved to be the boost it needs to defeat the anti-spirals after a final drill clash. Lordgenome gladly gave his life for this attack, and it proved to be the boost they needed. Well done, that man. Lordgenome is generally one of my favourite anime antagonists. I don't want to say villains, because it's up to interpretation just how justified he was in his actions during the first half. I know the whole bad guy turned good guy thing can be a bit overdone, but when it's done well I can't complain. Lordgenome's whole arc was a conclusive tale with a beginning, middle and end that I'd potentially put up there with Meruem as one of my favourite antagonist arcs. He was once a child who discovered a great power like Simon did, and then wielded that power to advance forward against his foes. Hell, his whole backstory showing his rise as a spiral warrior would be an awesome prequel series that I'd love to see. I know the series is essentially dead now with no new content likely, but you know, I'd like to see it. He was the hero of his own story, much like Simon, but when confronted with a spiral nemesis, that's where his path and the path of Simon differ. Lordgenome was driven to total despair and turned on his allies, driving humanity underground as a precaution in fear of what might happen, whilst Simon did the opposite. With his friends and the rest of humanity backing him, Simon thrust forward through the doubt and despair, tackling the anti-spiral and potentially even the spiral nemesis head on. If Lordgenome had possessed the qualities of Simon, maybe he could have performed the same feats. Who knows? This parallel between him and Simon isn't lost on Lordgenome either, as he brings it up during the Lazengan vs Gurren Lagann fight, whilst inside Teplin, stating that there once was a man who fought as he did. Whilst on the topic of the fight, I just want to say how much I adore the part when he climbs out of Lazengan to start wailing on Lagann with his bare hands, and beat the absolute snot out of Simon. It reminds me a bit of the Gurren Lagann equivalent of sitting forward in your chair while playing a game. You know, one of those moments where, you know, it's time to get real. That lean forward increases your power by like 30%. When he's resurrected as a head in a jar years later, he doesn't seem to mind and is happy to help out. I thought he was an awesome character, so I was thrilled to have him back. The way he discarded Nia was horrible, and I'm not going to defend it, but I suppose when you've been alive as long as he has, and grown so detached from actual human civilization, treating people like playthings doesn't seem like too much of a far-fetched state of mind. Him taking an active role in the final battle when he gets his body back is fantastic, especially when he denies his kingship and reclaims his mantle of a spiral warrior, as he was so long ago. You could tell he's in his element here, as opposed to sitting there bored in a robe. Given that it's thanks to the super spiral space that he's able to maintain the body, it's more than likely that upon reverting to regular space, he'd go back to just being a head in a jar. So it's fitting that he chose to go out in a blaze of glory, as a proud able-bodied warrior while he had the chance. I'm not sure if this is at all intentional, and I'm not sure if I'm going to word this properly, but isn't it cool how the man who essentially stifled humanity's evolution by stuffing them underground, was then the one to save humanity by harnessing the power which gave life to it in the first place? I mean, isn't the birth of the universe like evolution's ultimate thing or whatever? I don't know, science stuff. I hope you get where I'm coming from there. I just think it's an interesting parallel. Lordgenome's journey from a young child to a warrior, to a defeatist, to a redemptive father, to then regaining status as a warrior who regained his passion and sacrificed himself for the good of the people he once enslaved is a fascinating one, and that's why he's one of my favourite characters ever. He had good intentions, but fell into the dark complacency and paid the price. But when given the opportunity, he takes responsibility for his actions and makes peace with those he's wronged, and he saves the universe. Godspeed, that man. Kitan was a character that I took a while to warm up to. In fact, I found him kind of annoying at first with the way he acted around Kamina and Simon. As it went on though, I began to really appreciate him for his bluntness and the way he wasn't afraid to say it how it was. It wasn't until the time skip that I really liked him though. That part when he takes on the Mugan armed with a shotgun, mwah, wonderful. But that's not the moment which I want to talk about here. When Team Daiguren goes into space to fight the anti-spiral, they get trapped in the death spiral machine, and all hope seems lost as the crew sinks into the crushing, deep black depths. Kitan, being the realist that he is, knows what needs to be done. He steals a kiss from Yoko, which admittedly came out of fucking nowhere, but he's about to go out in a blaze of glory, so whatever. He flies out towards the core of the death spiral machine and sprays King Kitan, borrowing one of Gurren Lagann's broken drills. He's not about to make any sappy speeches wishing the others farewell like Kamina did, because that's not Kitan's style. Nah. This dude is just cruising along the highway of pure hot-bloodedness until the end. Unfortunately, the crushing pressure of the death spiral field proves too much for the gunmen, and Kitan is crushed. But wait! What's that emerging from the explosion? Holy shit, it's the regular original King Kitan gunman, like a beautiful spiky metal golden phoenix rising from the ashes. His eyes are ablaze with pure green spiral energy, which is something rarely ever seen in the series, which means that this dude might literally possibly be the most powerful spiral warrior in the series right now. Holy shit! He proudly raises the drill he borrowed from Gurren Lagann, which I must point out again was already cracked from use. In potentially the most epic, awe-inspiring speech of the whole series, Kitan declares that the drill is Simon's soul. It's Team Daiguren's soul. It's humanity's soul. It's his soul. And do you really think they're going to be wiped out by the likes of them? With this drill, he carries the hopes and dreams of every living being, and despite knowing what's going to happen, he proudly holds that drill up in the air. Then, it happens. The cracked drill repairs itself and multiplies in size. We've seen this attack before, but never like this. This isn't your run-of-the-mill Giga Drill Breaker. This is the King Kitan Giga Drill Breaker. It's bigger, badder, and more spectacular, and I'll proudly die on the hill that it's the best Giga Drill Breaker of the entire series. The King Kitan Giga Drill Breaker is successful in destroying the Death Spiral machine. Victorious in his final quest to save the day, King Kitan burns up with Kitan inside, finally experiencing the sensation of spiral power. He fades away, laughing, content with his success. What follows is the birth of Choginga / Super Galaxy Gurren Lagann, rising from the depths of space like an ethereal beast from hell. While this whole sequence has been playing out, we get to hear Liber Ami from Hell for the first time, which to me is the finest piece of anime-related music ever made, combining rap and opera with opposing themes of death and nihilism versus rebellious hot-blooded bars. Holy shit, it's so thematically fucking perfect and cool to listen to, and holy shit, it fits the scene so well. Oh my fucking god, this anime is just so brilliant, I have to say that.
Sean? You alright?
Right, so on to my absolute, final, ultimate, favourite moment in all of Gurren Lagann. In episode 26, Team Daiguren is trapped by the anti-spiral in an interdimensional labyrinth which holds their minds in a sort of dreamscape. Anything their minds can conceive is instantly given shape around them, simultaneously creating an infinite amount of realities. For you TV trope fanatics out there, it's basically a Lotus Eater machine. In one of these realities, young Simon is still hanging out with Kamina, who is alive and sort of well. They get by via thievery and sucking up to authority. The Kamina here is a quivering dweeb, a shallow imitation of the man Simon once knew. I'll call him Poundland Kamina. One day they get caught stealing, and Poundland Kamina immediately starts grovelling. Simon just kinda accepts it at first, but then, here's a voice behind him. It's the real Kamina, who Simon had carried with him in his heart this whole time. While Pound Chop Kamina is on the ground like a wet blanket, the real Kamina proudly stands skyward, proclaiming how great he is and how there can only ever truly be one of him. When the Pound Chop Kamina literally drags Simon down to his level to grovel with him, Simon, thanks to the spirit of the real Kamina, comes to the realization that this is all a load of bullshit, and he is not some thieving underground sneak, but the one who's going to pierce the heavens with his drill and knocks poor little Pound Chop Kamina clean out. My drill is the heart of my soul. Grinning, the real Kamina hops down and Simon unlocks the chest with his core drill, wiping away the dreary grey landscape and replacing it with this warm, heaven-like vista. I like to think that this really is actually heaven, and Simon's link to Kamina's spirit from beyond the grave was so strong that it counteracted the anti-spiral somehow. Simon, now an adult again, stands before his bro, two heroes together again. Similar in hair and stature, but who are completely their own people now. Kamina's work is done here, and he tells Simon not to be distracted by all the potential possibilities of what could happen, and instead focus on the truth of his own universe, which he carries within. When that's done, it's time to leave, and this time it really is goodbye. There's not going to be any more reunions after this. The younger Simon from the past may have tried to deny this, or stay for as long as he could with his brother, but the grown-up, mature Simon doesn't. He simply smiles and accepts it, knowing that he has to get out there and continue fighting the anti-spiral, so that he can keep living his life without being bound to what came before. He states that Kamina is always with him in his heart, which is just the most lovely and cheesy thing you could possibly imagine. It's not like Kamina is going to be alone here either, as we see that the rest of the fallen Team Daigoro members are here too. Simon bids farewell to Kamina for the final time and turns to face his destiny, raising his core drill high. We get glimpses of other realities being faced by the infinite Simons, which makes me wonder if each and every single one of them gets visited by Kamina, or if it's just this one. Simon does a henshin and morphs into Gurren Lagann with the armour forming around him, literally becoming the symbol of hope for the future and humanity, on which the dreams and the past of the future rest. Oh my god! The incredible Liberami from Hell is once again playing throughout the scene, which elevates this already masterful scene to biblical levels to me. Now fully mech'd up, Simon departs from the Kamen afterlife to soar through these infinite realities, rescuing the other trap members. Here, we see what sorts of things they're up to, such as Lordgenome being a headmaster, and Yoko being a teacher on Mari and Kitan. Kamina is here too, showing these things on a little television. This also makes me wonder if Kamina showed up in everyone's realities or not. It's Viral's reality that hit me the most. Here, he seems to have a loving family with a partner and child. Considering beastmen cannot reproduce, this hits hard, as this must have been some sort of paradise life for Viral. However, when he sees Gurren Lagann flying through the air, he realises what's really going on, and leaps up to join him and the others without hesitation. Like Simon, he isn't about all this fake bullshit, and immediately hops back towards reality. Powered by sheer determination to save Nia and humanity, Simon finally bursts from Nia's ring, defiantly standing before the anti-spiral. Simon wraps his beloved within his super cool star coat, reassuring her that he's there to save her. What I just described from Simon's fake reality all the way up to him saving Nia is my favourite moment of Gurren Lagann, and quite possibly in all of anime. It's genuinely difficult for me to put into words why I love this scene so much. You know when you experience something that just makes you feel things, you know, like emotions? Emotions so strong that they feel like they're about to burst in your heart like an erupting volcano? Yeah, that's this scene for me. The video title makes a lot more sense now, doesn't it? Simon accepting that Kamina was gone and then moving on as his own person was already awesome. But having him confronted by the sight of Kamina return before his very eyes and then cheerfully accepting the farewell is a very, very well done way of showing the growth he's experienced as a character. He became a man back then, but now he's a mania man. This scene is one of 3 anime moments to genuinely make me cry, alongside Hunter x Hunter and Assassination Classroom. I'm not going to spoil them here in case you've never seen either of those, but fans of those shows probably know exactly what I'm talking about. It's moments like the ones I listed above that truly stand out to me as prime examples of why Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann is an incredibly heartfelt and awe-inspiring piece of work that deserves to be witnessed and gushed over, like I am now. There are other moments I fucking love too, like the first Gurren Lagann Gatai, or Kamina's final stand, where he literally revives himself briefly from the dead to come back and do the Giga Drill Breaker. Simon teleporting to punch a suicidal Rossyu. Gurren Lagann is just chock full of hype and heartfelt moments that draw you in and keep you engaged, managing to both motivate you and make you weep. If I did have to break these feelings down into a tangible explanation, it would be that Gurren Lagann is a non-stop thrill ride that keeps upping the ante to ridiculous levels, but also takes the time to have quiet moments with characters when needed, and isn't afraid to pull the rug from underneath you with shocking twists that leave you speechless. Despite its over-the-top ridiculousness and perceived nonsense, Gurren Lagann does in fact have serious themes and topics that are worth taking note of. Yes, it is silly a lot of the time, and doesn't make sense in what's occurring on screen, but there's more to it than that. It's a story about growing up and being responsible for what you do, being aware of the consequences of your actions. Yes, it's a show all about breaking your limits and continuing to push on upwards towards the future, but as we see with the Spiral Nemesis, too much use of that forward-moving evolution energy could prove to be catastrophic if not handled properly. Team Daiguren still challenges the anti-Spiral in their belief, but vows to do what they can to prevent the Nemesis in their own way. In a way, agreeing with their foe that something must be done. Along with Final Fantasy IX, Gurren Lagann is something I experienced during a bit of a rough patch of my life, and proved to be just the energizing boost I needed, showing that even during your darkest days when you're feeling at your lowest, you'll have people who do care about you and want you to succeed, and it's up to you to climb to your feet and realise that. For Simone, this was Kamina and then Nia, and by extension, the entirety of humanity and every other living thing. It's a show about growing up and learning to be your own person, dealing with the losses and heartbreak that may come your way, which are an unfortunate part of life we all have to deal with in some way or the other. It's okay to mourn and allow yourself time to be upset and grieve, but dwelling on it too much can lead you down a self-destructive path that could lead you or others to harm. You need to pick yourself up and find something worth living for, standing proudly at the forefront of your life with your arms crossed, ready to face what comes. Never forget your loved ones and what they did for you, but don't let those memories weigh you down and keep you in a slump. Carry them in your blazing heart with you as you stride forwards towards the future, ready to face what comes next. Here's some extra bits of trivia that I couldn't really fit anywhere else, so they're going in here. The opening scene of the show portrays Simon in space aboard Cathedral Terra with Buta, declaring his intention to fight all the lights in the sky, which are their enemies. If you've seen the show, and if not, why are you still watching? Then you'll know this scene never actually happens. This is because the scene was made earlier on in production, before the story was changed, and by the time the story caught up to where that would take place, it had already grown beyond the initial scope. In case you weren't already aware, Gurren Lagann has two movies called Gurren Hen and Lagann Hen, which act as more condensed versions of the two halves of the show respectively. Whilst following the same overall story, the movies have some differences, such as most of the Beastmen generals combining into a huge final mecha at the end of Gurren Hen, and then in Lagann Hen, most of Team Daiguren surviving and even getting their own Tengen Toppa gunmen during the final battle, and, most notably, the introduction of Super Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann at the end, which is a giant energy Kamina/Simon that uses the already incomprehensibly huge Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann as its glasses. In addition to the movies, there's also the Parallel Works, a series of music videos for the soundtrack that mostly feature visuals of the events experienced in the infinite alternate realities, although one of them is actually a canon prequel to the series, featuring Lordgenome's rise and fight against the Anti-Spirals. If you haven't seen any of these yet, I'd highly recommend them. Yu Yoshinari, the mechanical designer of the series, produced designs for Tengen Toppa gunmen that unfortunately did not appear in the movies. The most notable of these are Tengen Toppa King Kitan and Tengen Toppa Lazengan. Oh, how I would have loved to see these! Seriously, Lazengan and King Kitan are some of my favourite robot designs ever, next to the original Gurren Lagann, so having these would have been like a wet dream for me. Simon's name comes from the Japanese term Shimo, meaning under. Do I even have to explain why this is a fitting name? According to the wiki, the staff themselves have stated that Super Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann is actually the reincarnation of Kamina. Make of that what you will. In 2007, the British Daily Telegraph held an online poll to vote on which design of a Union Jack, with the woefully underrepresented Welsh dragon incorporated into it, would win. This design, submitted by a Norwegian fan, was the winning pick, with over 55% of the votes. As a Welsh person myself, I would have been thrilled to have this as the flag, but alas, it was not meant to be. The fact that it even happened though is just amazing. So, there you have it. I've just gushed over Gurren Lagann for minutes on end, probably sounding like an overexcitable fool in the process. I really do mean it when I say that I absolutely adore this series and everything about it, in case that wasn't already apparent throughout the course of this video. Of course the series has its flaws like anything does, such as a few forgettable members of the team here and there, that one episode with the weird looking animation, the laws of physics being smashed against the wall if you care about that sort of thing, and the ending being either really good or really bad depending on your interpretation. I know this sounds rich coming from a guy who's just spent this whole video audibly splurging over Gurren Lagann, But I do think that being able to recognise the flaws of something you love is a healthy and balanced way to enjoy something, because in my opinion, it shows that you're not just a blind, slobbering fanboy who consumes all without hesitation. You can use your brain. It's amazing, even with some flaws that could hold it back depending on how much those things bother you. They don't really bother me though. I mean, my enjoyment of the show is so immense that I just sort of accept it and move on, while still acknowledging them. Thank you for sitting through this video, and I hope my gushing over Gurren Lagann wasn't too overbearing. If you're a huge fan of this series like I am, then I hope I made some sense, and you can agree with me on points, and even have your own reasons for loving it that are completely different to my own. If you do, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. I realise that I didn't even cover every aspect of the series, like the rest of the soundtrack, Nia's involvement, the reasoning behind the anti-spirals, and some other stuff. But the thing is about this show is that there's just so much going on that pretty much every component in this anime is wonderfully put together and doesn't even need explaining in detail. You can enjoy whatever about it that you want. Should I have covered every aspect more? Probably. But the purpose of this video is always just to sit here and gush over what this show means to me, personally, with some introductory informative spiel thrown in here and there. I'm sure there are more comprehensive videos out there giving a walkthrough of Gurren Lagann, so watch one of those if you need. I've seen most of them, they're really good. I'm just a fanboy and raving about his favourite thing here. I hope you've enjoyed, gained some new information, or at least tolerated my extremely fanboyish rave about this gatai of greatness, this amalgamation of awesome, this coalescence of cool, the mecha masterpiece that is Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.